There's not much time. And yes, the clock is ticking. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. It was a beautiful day in the valley, with the city, rolling hills, and lakes in the distance. It was a picture-perfect scene until a black cloud moved over the valley. The San Francisco Bridge flashed over the scene for a few seconds and disappeared. A man's transparent face appeared within the cloud. Derek's face was dark with mischief in mind. His eyes grew larger and turned red as a laser shot out of his eyes, destroying the small city below. "Hey!" Sharon screamed from a hilltop nearby. "I just finished building that. Derek!" The pretty 25-year-old yelled at him, looking around for him. Wearing a short, thin, light blue toga, she was barefoot. She watched the cloud move over and transform into an eagle flying away. Sharon flew up in the air and turned into an eagle. The two of them were aware of a presence watching them, but paid no attention to it. Sharon's eagle, with an orange beak, chased after Derek's red-beaked eagle. Sharon's eagle chased after Derek and flew around the area and then into an ocean, where they turned into dolphins and were swimming around down towards the bottom, chasing each other. They kept going and swam up to the surface. Sharon and Derek turned back into eagles, and Sharon's eagle shot a laser beams out at her eyes at Derek, and Derek was heard laughing. "You cannot destroy me." "You're just trying to make us miss our deadline," Sharon's voice was heard. "Yes, and you will be destroyed for not completing your mission." Anger was in Sharon's eagle's eyes. A burst of laser light hit Derek's eagle, and the eagle burst into pieces and fell to the ground. Disgusted, Sharon went to see Van, the leader of their team. In his 50s, Van was distinguished looking with salt and pepper hair. He also wore a short, thin purple toga around his waist. A thin, open vest displayed his strong, muscular chest. His face was calm and confident. "What is it, Sharon?" He stood in the doorway of his small adobe hut, which sat among some trees with four other adobe huts. "It's gone." With an expressive face, Sharon pouted, making faces and flapping her arms. "He did it. He destroyed my city. Van, can't we get rid of him? We'll never finish on time at this rate." "Calm down, Sharon." Van clutched her shoulders. "After all my hard work." "Go after him," Van suggested. "Alone? By myself?" She doubted her confidence. Derek was a very powerful devil. "You have the confidence and power. Use it," Van insisted. Sighing and breathing deeply, Sharon stood up straight. "Yes, I do." Van nodded. "You can do it. The deadline is coming, and we must be finished." He felt a presence watching him, but it didn't bother him. Looking up, he saw a fading, transparent female face in the cloud. Sharon nodded. "He's going to get it." Turning around, she saw Ross on horseback riding towards them. "Hi, Sharon." Ross smiled at her. They were attracted to each other. In his late 20s, Ross was nice-looking, slender, and agile. They all wore the same type of short toga and no shoes, and Ross's toga was dark blue. Later, Ross, smiling, Sharon flew up in the air, and Van was looking at Ross. "Have you seen Macy?" "No." He shook his head as he dismounted his horse. "What about Todd?" Shaking his head, Ross giggled. "He's probably singing to the animals. Find Macy and get her to show Todd what to do." "Sure," Rod nodded. So he pointed at his horse. It disappeared, and then he disappeared. Van looked out over the valley as the Statue of Liberty superimposed over the area, then disappeared in a few seconds. In another direction, the valley continued with trails and forests. Todd hung upside down on a branch, watching some birds from the tree. Nice looking, with a light complexion, in his 30s, Todd wore a brown toga. He was flamboyant, slender, and agile, and he had a habit of breaking out in song and dance, which included the music with it. He sang Mockingbird Hill. Marcy walked up to him. In her 30s, she was a strong, athletic tomboy type. She had deep dimples and loved to have fun. Her toga was yellow. Todd, with her hands on her hips, she watched him. "You can come down now." His legs hung over the branch, and he turned to her. "Marcy, good morning. Beautiful day, isn't it?" And with the music, he sang, "Oh, what a beautiful morning." "Yes, it is." Marcy fought to keep from laughing at him. And then Todd interrupted her. "I've never been so happy. I love it here." He flipped down out of the tree, and he took Marcy and danced her around with her, to the tune of Shall We Dance? And Marcy stopped. Todd, this is great. All the things I can do here. The music. I can talk to the animals. They didn't pay attention to that presence watching from above. The woman's face faded in a cloud. Come on, Marcy urged him, walking off. Todd followed her, and he was followed by the rabbits, squirrels, and birds. Pay attention, she said. He smiled at the animals at his feet and started singing Zippity-Doo-Dah. And rolling her eyes, Marcy sighed. They continued around some trees through a small forest and came out to Marcy's adobe hut home. We have work to do. They went inside. Marcy tried to be patient, but had to laugh at him. We have a deadline. I'm all ears. He flapped his big ears forward. The forces within us and around us give us the power to do anything and create anything we want, she started to explain. Marcy's home was sparse, with only a sofa bed and some shelving around the room. A small low table was in the middle of the room. Todd scooted the animals outside, and Marcy waved her hand across the wall and a large screen appeared. Wow, how'd you do that? Todd watched her. Envision what you want. Feel it, think it, and wave your hand or your hands any way you want, and it's yours. The population will be coming soon, and we need to build this world for them. There's not much time left. Lucky them, Todd grinned. Gotcha. There are 5 of us, and there's another one coming, I think. The screen showed a revolving planet from space. She waved her hand over the scene. We are responsible for all their needs. And Macy looked directly into his eyes. Remember when you were physical? He nodded. Gotcha, he smiled and winked at her. The screen honed in on a beach and a lake. And Ross and Sharon were on the beach. They were rolling around, kissing and caressing. And nearby, 2 horses grazed in the grass. That's Sharon and Ross. And you met Van. She looked deep into his deep, dark brown eyes. Want to try it? Grinning to himself, he went outside, and Marcy followed him. He was thinking he'd like to fly. So he started singing, Let's Go Fly a Kite. And quickly, his body lifted up. He hit his head on a tree branch, which forced him back down to the ground. He plopped down hard on his butt and rubbed his sore head. And Macy laughed at him. You'll get it. It takes some getting used to. Then a mountain lion came around some trees, and turning to it, Todd calmly held out his hand. Hi there. And the lion slowly stepped forward, stalking them. His eyes grew large and turned red, and Marcy stepped back worried, and her eyes widened. It's Derek, come on. Macy pulled Todd up, and they ran off. They both flew up in the air. I need to warn you about him. Todd and Macy turned into peregrine falcons racing off at top speed. The mountain lion turned into a flying dragon. In their 40s, Carol and Jack were asleep in bed. Gasping awake, Carol sat up in bed. It was her face that was seen in her dream. The sun came in the shaded large window nearby, and Jack stirred and woke up. Honey, what's the matter? He reached back for her. That dream again. Carol wiped her face, waking up. She had strong, dominant features. Without makeup, she looked pale and puffy, and getting heavy, she was fighting to keep her shape. With a pot belly, Jack also had a weight problem. He was fighting. Gray hair crept into his thick hair and made him feel his age. He rolled over to Carol and rubbed her back as she sat up. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. I think it's time to get up anyway. Opening one eye, he looked at the clock. It was 6:45 a.m. So weird. Again. Carol rubbed her face, looking around the nicely decorated bedroom. And Jack rubbed her back under the nightgown. 5 people were in this place. They had a mission to build a new world, but he kept destroying it. He? Who? He was like a devil. Time was running out. Sighing, she laid back on bed. Sorry for waking you. She looked up at Jack, who studied her body. Forget it. He laid close to her and started kissing her neck. It felt so real, like I was there, watching it all happen. You always look so sexy in the morning. He kissed her, his way down her neck to her breast. Liking it, Carol grinned, and they rolled around in bed, caressing and kissing each other. Let's stay here all day, she commented. I thought you were headed to San Diego with Ann Powers. They both looked over at an empty suitcase that was open, sitting on a nearby chair. Who cares? Carol kissed him back. I've got you. Let's call the whole day off, and this state would fall apart without me. He kissed her ear and down her body again. To be sure, Governor Hanson, they kissed. And I'm sure your listeners would miss you, Miss First Lady. We got time, Carol grinned. Anything you say, First Lady. And they, smiling, they sunk under the covers, caressing and kissing. Their 12-year-old son, Gary, quickly appeared in the doorway and studied the moving covers on the bed. Wearing glasses, he was husky and getting heavy. He jumped on the bed and they groaned with his weight. Carol and Jack threw the covers on him and tickled him. You two have all the fun, Gary pouted. Oh, you'll have this kind of fun through soon enough, Jack told him and tickled him. They all tickled each other. And then Gary and Jack ganged up on Carol. Irene, their elderly maid, stepped in, and Jack looked up. What is it, Irene? Breakfast is ready, and you have a 9 o'clock meeting with the mayor of Carson City. Oh, yes. You always spoil our fun, Irene, Jack sighed. Come on, Gary, let's find you some clothes for school today. The stiff small lady urged him to follow her. Jack stood up off the bed and stepped down on some papers that were on the floor. Curiously, he picked up a piece and looked at it. You're making designs in circles now, our new house? Carol started to take her nightgown off and turned to him. I got an idea late last night, after meditating. She stared at him. What? She thought nothing of it and shrugged, putting her on her bra and a nice pair of jeans and blouse. You're going into meditating again? That spirituality crap? So what? She said. Anne got you into it, didn't she? Serious about it, Carol stared him down. Come on, Carol. Stay out of it and politics with your radio show. Why don't you go back to architecture and stay out of the limelight? Mm-hmm. Anne's nothing but an entertainer. Wiping her face, Carol sighed, still embarrassed and disappointed she couldn't pass the test for her license. She loved to create and draw. She loved also helping people, using guests on her popular radio show. It was fun, and she loved to talk, giving her opinion on everything, which usually annoyed Jack. I really like it, Jack. My audience keeps asking me about current events. She had a habit of tilting her head to the right because of a fall out of a tree. And she almost broke her neck when she was little. And now I'm speaking at the conference this weekend. A real honor. And Anne is a respected award-winning singer and musician. Well, she's going to get her ass kicked if she doesn't stop mouthing off about our current economy and politics. She's putting ideas in your head. You're the First Lady of Nevada, Carol. Start acting like it. Jack snapped and went in the bathroom. She's my friend, Carol snapped back. Late that Friday afternoon, Carol arrived in San Diego and her hotel, along with her friend Ann Powers, who at 42 kept trying to look younger. She had strength and sex appeal, and fans loved her, but some of them followed her for her views and opinions on what was going on around the globe. They walked into the busy hotel lobby. The National Organization of Women were holding their conference there. A man wearing dark glasses followed them in, keeping his eye on both of them. And Carol was staring at Anne as they kept walking. You're not just singing, you're speaking? Anne nodded, and it worried Carol. On what? Anything I want. Anne's blue eyes sparkled when she smiled. Some people turned recognizing the two famous ladies. Oh, Lord, what are you going to do? Carol was shaking her head at Anne. The truth about our corrupt shadow government, the Fed and the IRS. Oh, God. Carol kept shaking her head. Don't, Anne, please don't. Some people started to approach them. You know what happens to people who spread conspiracy, Carol warned her. Well, I'm not keeping quiet anymore. Look what's happening to our nation, our health, our kids. They're doing it to us. Anne was very passionate about her cause. Shaking her head, Carol wasn't sure if she believed the deception that just a few people wanted to control the world. They had stopped, and several people, including reporters, approached them. The man with the dark glasses circled around watching as the crowd was forming around them. Carol and Anne turned to each other. I thought you believed me, Carol. Anne stared at her. The time you interviewed me on your show. I'm not sure. Carol was torn between Jack and Anne and between what was going on. Isn't it about time somebody came forward? Anne stared at her. Wake up, Carol. There isn't much time left. Feeling all the eyes on her, Anne wanted everyone to hear her. Staring at Anne, Carol remembered her dream. The team indicated that there wasn't much time left, and Anne would fit in perfectly, especially with Todd. We have to stand up to them. We've all been brainwashed all our lives. If we don't do something, we'll end up as slaves in their FEMA camps. We aren't free. Anne shook her head. It has to change. We can be sovereign people. What's going on, Anne? A reporter had a cell phone out to record her. Is this what you're going to be speaking on? Anne nodded and Carol sighed, not knowing where she stood. What's this shadow government you mentioned? The woman asked. And Carol turned to the woman next to Anne and saw the man raising a gun up to shoot Anne in the back. With wide, alarmed eyes, Carol shoved Anne forward as the bullet rang out. They tripped over each other's feet and fell, and the bullet hit Carol in the neck. Screams rang out, and people ran for cover. The man ran off in a split second out the door. Carol hit the ground in stunned shock. Anne rolled over and sat up, seeing Carol on the floor. Oh, my God, she said. And then the people started yelling, Let's get out of here. People started gathering, closing in on Anne and Carol. Somebody get a doctor, someone yelled. Where's security? Somebody get security, another woman yelled. Anne crawled over to Carol and rolled her over. Quickly, Anne grabbed her neck as the blood poured out. She felt the bullet was still in her neck near the carotid artery. Carol's body tensed, shaking in shock. Two security guards ran over, and the people used their video cameras and cell phones to film the whole thing. Carol looked up at Anne. Tears came to her eyes. Sorry, big feet. Carol was gasping. Don't try to talk. Just hang on. Somebody get a doctor. Tears came to Anne's eyes. Get back. Get back. One guard urged everyone to step back. The other guard knelt near Anne and Carol. Oh, God. Carol's eyes rolled up as she started crying. Gary, Jack. Don't talk, Carol. Where's the doctor? She snapped. Anne couldn't stop her tears. You saved my life, Carol. Carol Timpson passed out when a doctor rushed over with a small medical kit. And scared, Anne wanted to lay her down as the crowd moved in. Don't move your hand. Dr. Cranston snapped. It made Anne jump. Keep your pressure on it. An ambulance is coming. He checked Carol's vital signs. Is she? Anne started to gag from all the blood. Her hand on Carol's neck was shaking. Alive. She's alive, barely. The doctor nodded. An ambulance siren got louder and louder. When informed about what happened, Jack and Gary immediately took a jet to get to San Diego. In the waiting room of the hospital, Gary was laying on the small sofa. He cried as Jack rubbed his back and watched him doze off. Jack stood up, rubbing his neck, and started to pace around the room. Anne's eyes were red from crying, and leaning back in her chair, Anne closed her eyes in prayer, and she covered her mouth. I'm sorry, Governor Hanson. Anne sat up, watching at pace. It should be me in there, with a hard glare. Jack's brown eyes turned on her. Okay, it's my fault. I know you blame me. She wouldn't be in there if it wasn't for me. By all rights, I should be dead. You got that right. Jack was angry. Please don't hate me, Governor. I admire and respect Carol more than you know. I'd give anything for it to be me, not her. Jack shook his head and wiped his face, fighting his anger and fear. I'm sorry, Miss Powers, I don't hate you. But you don't approve of me. No, I don't. I won't lie. You don't know when to keep your mouth shut. You saved my life. Anne gulped. She must think you're worth it. Then Dr. Cranston came in the room, and Anne stood up and Gary woke up. Dr. Cranston? Jack turned to him. He shook his head. She's in a coma. We're keeping her on life support. And Gary ran into Jack's arms. Dear God, can't you do anything? Jack stared at him. Where's Mommy, Daddy? Gary cried. I'm sorry. Dr. Cranston shook his head. There's nothing. Can we see her? Jack begged. Dr. Cranston nodded. Jack nodded to Anne to join them in intensive care. Unconscious on the bed, Carol had tubes in her nose, mouth, and arms. An extensive bandage covered her neck, and Jack took Carol's hand. They all had tears in their eyes, and Jack reached out and took Anne's hand. And the news flashed around the globe about Carol. Everybody knew about her. and Anne needed to stay out of sight, so the three of them stayed at the hospital. And in intensive care, Carol didn't move. Monitoring her vital signs, the medical staff kept a careful eye on her. She had been in a coma for 48 hours. Unconscious, Carol saw Van's transparent face and arm outstretched to her. "Carol, come join us. We need your help." Then the transparent faces of Sharon, Ross, Todd, and Macy appeared. They all reached out to her. And meanwhile, in the cafeteria, Jack, Gary, and Anne ate lunch. But they all just picked on their food. Their faces and eyes were red from crying. "I didn't realize you two were so close." "It's okay, Anne. Call me Jack." Nodding, Anne sifted through her salad with her fork. "Okay, Jack." Jack rubbed her back, wanting to soothe and comfort her. "We met in Vegas when I was doing my show 10 years ago, I think. I had finished the show and my driver pulled out and bumped into her car." "Oh, that's how she smashed the car." Jack snickered. "Daddy, what are we going to do?" Gary sniffled. Then a voice came over the public address system. "Governor Hanson, Ann Powers, please report to intensive care." They all jumped up and ran out. Dr. Cranston and a nurse waited for them as they rushed in, and Carol was awake and sweating. Carol's head rolled over seeing them. Gary, Jack, and Anne. And weakly, she lifted her hand for them, and Jack grabbed her hand. "Mommy!" Gary ran to her side, leaning on her, and wanted to hug her. He put his head down on her chest. "You're going to be all right." Carol had tears in her eyes, and Jack's hand put Carol's hand on Gary's head. "It's all my fault, Carol." Anne was at a loss. "It should have been me here." "No, it's me they want." She spoke softly, so they all had to lean in close to her. "Hang on, you'll make it." Jack stared at her and leaned over, kissing her forehead. "It's supposed to happen." Tears filled Carol's hazel eyes. "What are you talking about?" Jack blinked, puzzled. "Don't be afraid. It'll be over soon." Carol felt herself dying and getting weaker. "Don't talk so much," Anne warned her. "You need your strength." "You saved my life." Confused, Anne put her head down, not knowing how to cope with it. "The end is near, and no one will be afraid, angry, hungry, or sad anymore." "Honey, what are you talking about?" Jack stared at the woman he loved and didn't want to lose her. "I'm sorry what happened that Friday morning." "Me too. It's okay. It's coming. Peace forever." Carol and Anne stared at each other. "I do believe you. Tell everyone everything. We're free. No more grieving. I'll be waiting." "Mommy?" Tears dripped down Gary's hazel eyes. "Love you all." Carol squeezed Jack's hand and closed her eyes to the physical world. Opening her eyes, Carol found herself in the valley and looked up a hill where Van, Sharon, Ross, Todd, and Macy were waiting. She floated up to them. It was a beautiful day as they looked around. They all smiled at each other and saw the black cloud appear in Derek, with Derek's face in it. "Now we have the power to finish. Our strength is complete." Van stared up at the cloud. "Wait a minute," Carol got an idea. They turned to her. "Don't fight fire with fire. That doesn't work. You fight fire with water. We drowned him in a sea of love." "Gotcha." Todd winked at her. "Love it," Van added. "Let's do it." Macy, Sharon, and Ross added in unison. They all spread out surrounding the cloud. With their eyes closed, they concentrated on sending all their love to Derek. "What's this?" Derek looked around and saw them with their hands on their hearts. "Oh, no, not that. Not. Spreading out their arms and hands up in the air, the bright-colored lights emitted from them and filled the entire sky and hit Derek, and he exploded and was gone. I hope you enjoyed this little story. Thanks for watching. And if you want more stories, head on over to my website. See you again sometime.